I know I'm just an old guy spinning tales, but some tales aren't meant to be ignored. Trust me, you'll want to hear this one. So turn down the lights, settle in, and let's dive into today's chilling stories. Before we begin, a fair warning. What you're about to hear is purely for entertainment. These stories and theories, they're nothing more than shadows in the dark. No proof, just whispers carried by the night. Listen closely, but don't say, "I didn't warn you." Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Alex wasn't the type to take risks. He liked to think of himself as cautious, careful, the kind of person who triple checks their locks before bed. But the deep web? That was different. It wasn't about danger. It was about mystery. He had spent months dipping his toes into the dark corners of the internet, curious about the hidden side of the world. It's just another layer of the web, he told his best friend Mia during one of their late-night calls. People act like it's full of monsters, but it's mostly just forms and encrypted chat rooms. "You're crazy for even looking," Mia said, laughing nervously. "Next thing you know, you'll click on the wrong link, and I'll see your face on the news." Alex smirked. "Relax. I know what I'm doing. Besides, the most exciting thing I've found so far is a recipe for cookies." Mia groaned. "One day, you're going to regret being so curious." That night, Alex sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, the glow of his laptop illuminating his face. The rain outside tapped against the window, a rhythmic backdrop to his typing. He had spent the past hour browsing harmless threads, old conspiracy theories, outdated survivalist manuals, and the occasional encrypted chat room. Then he saw it. The thread was buried deep in a forum he didn't recognize, with a title that immediately caught his attention. "What They Don't Want You to See." There was no description, just a single link. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over the trackpad. A voice in the back of his mind whispered that Mia was right. This was the kind of thing that led to trouble. But curiosity won. He clicked. The screen went black for a moment, then loaded a stark white page. A single video window sat in the center, with text above it. "Live feed starting, 0030. The timer ticked down in silence. Alex leaned closer, frowning. The simplicity of the page was unsettling. No ads, no comments, no description, just the video window. "What is this?" he muttered, his unease growing. When the countdown reached 0, the screen flickered to life. The video quality was poor, grainy, dark, but he could make out a narrow alleyway lined with trash bins and puddles, reflecting faint streetlights. For a few moments, nothing happened. Then the camera moved, panning slowly down the alley. Alex's pulse quickened. It wasn't the footage itself that bothered him. It was the way the camera moved, deliberate and purposeful, like someone was holding it. At the far end of the alley, a figure appeared. They wore a dark hoodie, their face hidden in shadow. They stood motionless for a moment before turning, as if sensing the camera's presence. Alex froze. The figure wasn't looking at the camera. They were looking at him. The screen flickered, and text appeared over the video. "You shouldn't have looked." His stomach dropped. He slammed the laptop shut, his heart pounding in his chest. For a moment, he sat there in silence, the rain outside growing louder, the shadows in his apartment feeling darker than before. "It's just a trick," he whispered to himself, trying to steady his breathing. "A prank, someone messing around." But then his phone buzzed on the desk. He picked it up, hoping for a text from Mia. Instead, it was a message from an unknown number. "We're watching, Alex." Alex stared at the text on his phone, his mind racing. "We're watching, Alex." His fingers trembled as he hovered over the message. He checked the number, completely untraceable. No name, no details, just the haunting words on his screen. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a coincidence, some kind of automated script. But how could they know his name? The rain outside seemed louder now, drumming against the window like a warning. He locked his phone and pushed it away, trying to convince himself it was nothing. For the rest of the night, he avoided his laptop, curling up on the couch with the TV on for background noise. The faint glow of the screen was comforting, even if he wasn't paying attention. But the unease lingered. Every creak of the apartment, every flicker of light felt magnified, as if something unseen was closing in. Finally, exhaustion won, and he fell into a restless sleep. When he woke, the laptop was open. Alex sat up with a start, his heart pounding. He was certain he'd closed it before going to bed. The screen glowed faintly in the dark room, displaying a single line of text. "Look outside." He froze. His apartment overlooked a quiet street, rarely busy even during the day. Now at 3 a.m., it would be deserted. Slowly, he rose from the couch and approached the window, his breath shallow. At first, he saw nothing. The street was dark, illuminated only by the weak glow of a flickering streetlight. But then his eyes caught it. A car parked across the street, its engine off, its headlights dark. Inside, a figure sat perfectly still, their face obscured by the shadows. Alex's stomach tightened. He stepped back from the window, his pulse hammering in his ears. His phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Wave." "No," Alex whispered, his voice shaking. He locked the door, his hands fumbling with the deadbolt. Then he grabbed the phone, typing furiously. "Who is this? What do you want?" The reply came instantly. "You shouldn't have looked." He dropped the phone as if it had burned him. The message repeated on the screen of his laptop, the words blinking over and over. His hands trembled as he slammed the lid shut, plunging the room into darkness. The next day, Alex tried to forget. He left the apartment, spending hours at a nearby cafe, his laptop left untouched on the desk at home. The normalcy of the bustling cafe was a welcome distraction. He even called Mia, though he left out the details of the night before. "I told you the deep web was bad news," Mia said, her voice carrying over the hum of background chatter. "Promise me you'll stop messing around with that stuff." "I promise," Alex lied. He returned to his apartment late that night, hoping the daylight had chased away the unease. But the second he stepped inside, it hit him. Something was wrong. The air felt heavier, colder. His laptop, which he was certain he'd closed, was open again. The screen glowed softly in the dark room. This time, the message was different. "Live feed starting, 0015. "No," Alex whispered, backing away. "No, no, no." But he couldn't look away. The timer ticked down, the numbers flashing ominously. 0010, 005, 001. The screen flickered, and the live feed returned. The video was grainy, but Alex recognized the scene immediately. It was his apartment. The camera panned slowly across his living room, lingering on the couch where he'd slept the night before. It moved to the kitchen, then to the desk, before settling on something that made Alex's blood run cold. The camera was behind him. He spun around, his heart pounding. But the room was empty. His phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. "Did you like the view?" This time, Alex didn't hesitate. He grabbed his keys and bolted, leaving the apartment behind. Alex didn't stop driving until the city lights faded into the distance. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, his knuckles turned white, and his breath came in shallow gasps. He had no destination in mind. He just needed to get away. Away from the apartment, the messages, the feed. Away from whatever was watching him. The road stretched on endlessly. The rain now a steady drizzle against the windshield. He pulled into a deserted gas station hours later, his body trembling with exhaustion. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as he parked and turned off the engine. "Think, Alex," he muttered to himself, his voice barely audible over the hum of the gas station. "It's just a prank. Some hacker messing with you, that's all." But deep down, he knew it wasn't that simple. Inside the gas station, Alex grabbed a coffee and slumped into a plastic booth. His phone sat on the table, dark and silent. For a moment, he considered smashing it. Maybe that would end it. But what if it didn't? What if they found another way to reach him? He stared at the phone, debating, until the screen lit up. A notification popped up. New message. Alex froze. His hands hovered over the phone as dread washed over him. Slowly, he unlocked it. The message was from the same unknown number. "Running won't help." His heart sank. Another message followed immediately. "You belong to us now." The phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a message. It was a live video feed. Alex's stomach turned as he tapped on it, the screen filling with a dark, grainy image. The feed was unmistakable. It was the gas station. The camera panned slowly, moving past the empty shelves and racks of snacks, before settling on the booth where Alex sat. The camera wasn't just showing the gas station, it was following him. Alex shot to his feet, his eyes darting around the store. There was no one there, just the bored cashier behind the counter, scrolling on their phone. But the camera on his screen zoomed in, focusing on him. His own terrified expression mirrored back at him. He dropped the phone onto the table and bolted for the door. Alex didn't remember driving back to the city. By the time he reached his apartment building, the sun was rising, painting the sky in muted shades of pink and orange. He didn't want to go back, but where else could he go? Every place he stopped felt like it was being watched. At least in the apartment, he could lock himself in and think. He parked his car and walked inside, his steps echoing through the empty hallway. His apartment door stood ajar. "No," he whispered, his pulse spiking. "No, no, no!" He pushed the door open cautiously. The living room was just as he'd left it, messy, with clothes tossed on the couch and takeout containers piled on the counter. But the air felt wrong, heavy, like someone or something had been there. His laptop was open again, glowing faintly in the dim light. He approached it slowly, every nerve in his body screaming for him to turn back. The screen displayed a new message. "Welcome back, Alex." The laptop screen flickered, and another live feed started. This time, it wasn't showing his apartment. It was showing an old, cluttered room, a bedroom he hadn't seen in years. A twin bed sat against the wall, its blankets faded and familiar. Posters of bands he'd loved as a teenager covered the walls. It was his childhood bedroom. "How?" Alex whispered, his voice shaking. The camera panned slowly, focusing on the nightstand beside the bed. A photo frame rested there, showing a much younger Alex with his parents. He hadn't seen that photo in years. His phone buzzed again. Another text. We know where it started." The feed continued, the camera zooming in on the closet door. It paused there for a moment before the door creaked open, revealing darkness inside. A shadow shifted, something moving inside the closet. The feed cut to black. Alex snapped the laptop shut, his mind racing. Whoever was doing this didn't just know him. They knew everything. His childhood, his apartment, where he was at all times. They were everywhere. He grabbed his jacket and ran out the door. He needed answers. Somewhere, buried in the threads of the deep web, there had to be something that explained what was happening. He spent the rest of the day hopping between cafes and libraries, using public Wi-Fi to avoid leaving a digital trail. Hours of searching led him to a single forum post, buried deep in a long-forgotten thread. The title read, "The Feed, What You See, They See." The post described similar experiences, people stumbling onto a live feed, seeing their own homes or places they knew. The comments were chilling, filled with warnings and desperate pleas for help. Once you're part of the feed, you can't leave. They don't stop, ever. Whatever you do, don't go to the address. At the bottom of the thread was a single reply. "It's not just a feed, it's a choice. You were chosen." Alex leaned back in his chair, his hands shaking. He scrolled down further and froze. The final comment wasn't like the others. It didn't offer warnings or advice. It was just an address. His phone buzzed on the table. A message from the unknown number. "You know where to go." Alex stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He didn't want to go, but deep down, he knew he had no other choice. If he didn't end this now, it would never stop. He copied the address and stood, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. The address led Alex to the outskirts of the city, a forgotten part of town where abandoned factories and crumbling warehouses stood like the skeletons of a past era. The sun was setting, casting long, eerie shadows across the cracked pavement. His car rumbled to a stop in front of a decrepit warehouse, its windows shattered and its walls covered in graffiti. "This is it," Alex whispered to himself, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The building loomed in the fading light, silent and foreboding. For a moment, Alex considered turning back. But his phone buzzed again, jolting him from his thoughts. The message was simple. "Come inside." He stepped out of the car, his breath visible in the cold evening air. The warehouse door creaked as he pushed it open, revealing a dark, cavernous space lit only by a faint, flickering light in the distance. His footsteps echoed on the concrete floor as he walked cautiously toward the glow. The light came from a single bulb hanging over a metal table in the center of the room. On the table was a laptop, its screen already on, displaying the words, "Welcome, Alex." Alex approached the table, his heart pounding in his chest. The laptop screen flickered, and a live feed began to play. It wasn't his apartment this time. It was his parents' house. The camera moved slowly through the familiar rooms, the kitchen, the living room, the hallway leading to the bedrooms. His mother's favorite vase sat on the table, exactly where it had been when he last visited. The sight sent a chill down his spine. "Mom, Dad," Alex whispered, his voice trembling. The camera stopped in front of the master bedroom door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door creaked open, revealing the darkened rooms inside. The bed was neatly made, but the shadows in the corner seemed to shift, almost as if something was standing there, watching. Before Alex could react, the screen changed. This time, it was a live feed of the warehouse itself. The camera was focused on him, standing at the table, his face pale and wide-eyed. "No," Alex muttered, spinning around. The room was empty. The camera wasn't visible. His phone buzzed again. Another message. "Look behind you." Alex froze, his breath caught in his throat. Slowly he turned, his eyes darting across the dark expanse of the warehouse. At first he saw nothing. But then, near the edge of the light, a figure emerged from the shadows. They wore a pale, featureless mask, their body covered in black from head to toe. The mask's empty eyes seemed to pierce through Alex, freezing him in place. Who are you?" Alex stammered, his voice barely audible. The figure didn't respond. Instead, they raised their hand and pointed to the laptop. The screen flickered, and the live feed of his parents' house returned. The camera zoomed in on the front door, which slowly creaked open. "Stop this!" Alex shouted, slamming his fists on the table. "What do you want from me?" The figure remained silent, unmoving. The live feed continued, showing the camera moving through his parents' house, heading toward the hallway. Alex's chest tightened as the camera stopped outside his childhood bedroom. "Leave them alone!" he screamed, his voice echoing through the warehouse. The figure tilted their head, almost curiously, before stepping back into the shadows and disappearing. The screen flickered again, displaying a new message. "One must pay the price." "What does that mean?" Alex whispered, his voice shaking. Another message appeared. "You know what to do." The laptop's camera light blinked on, and Alex realized he was now part of the feed. The screen showed his own terrified face, framed by the dim glow of the bulb above. The phone buzzed one last time. "Choose." Alex stared at the screen, his mind racing. He didn't understand what they wanted, but deep down, he knew this wasn't just about him anymore. His parents, Mia, anyone connected to him, could be next. The feed of his parents' house returned, the camera now in the master bedroom. The shadows shifted, revealing another figure in the same pale mask, standing at the foot of the bed. "Please," Alex whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I'll do anything. Just don't hurt them." The laptop screen flickered again, displaying a single word: sacrifice. Alex's breath hitched as he realized what they were asking. He didn't know who they were, why they'd chosen him, or what the end game was. But he knew there was no escape. With trembling hands, he reached for the laptop, his reflection staring back at him. The camera feed of his parents' house cut to black, replaced by a new image, the chair he was standing beside. "Do it," Alex whispered to himself, his voice hollow. "It's the only way." He sat down, the cold metal of the chair sending a chill through his body. As soon as he did, the laptop screen changed again. "You have joined the feed." The light above him flickered, and the last thing Alex saw was the masked figure stepping into the circle of light, holding a piece of paper with 3 words: "Welcome to eternity." The screen went black. When the screen went black, Alex thought it was over. But the darkness wasn't silent. The faint hum of the laptop continued, growing louder, more rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Then the screen blinked back on. This time, it wasn't a live feed. It was a room filled with monitors, each displaying feeds from different places. Some showed apartments, others homes, some even outdoor spaces like parks or alleyways. Every screen displayed people going about their lives, unaware they were being watched. But one screen was different. It showed Alex sitting in the metal chair, staring blankly at the laptop. He blinked, confused. His reflection on the screen didn't mimic his movements. It sat completely still, eyes unblinking, body rigid. "What is this?" Alex whispered, his voice trembling. The reflection of himself on the screen turned its head and smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was wrong, stretched too wide, teeth sharp and glinting. The screen flickered again, and a message appeared. "You're part of us now." Alex stumbled out of the chair, his pulse pounding in his ears. He turned around, searching for a way out, but the warehouse seemed endless now, its walls stretching into the shadows. The faint glow of the monitors was the only source of light. He approached them cautiously, his breath catching in his throat as he recognized some of the scenes. One showed Mia, sitting at her desk, scrolling on her phone. Another showed his parents, sitting in their living room, talking quietly. "Why?" Alex whispered, his voice barely audible. The monitors flickered, and for a moment, the feeds all changed. Every screen now displayed a different angle of Alex himself, his apartment, his car, even the gas station where he'd stopped earlier. The message on the laptop reappeared. "The world is watching." For the first time, Alex heard a voice. It wasn't from the laptop or the monitors. It was in the room with him, low and distorted, like a whisper carried on the wind. "You wanted to see the truth, didn't you?" the voice asked, echoing in the vast space. "Who are you?" Alex shouted, spinning around. "Why are you doing this?" The voice laughed, the sound hollow and chilling. "We're everywhere. We see everything. And now, so do you." "I didn't ask for this," Alex yelled. "You clicked," the voice replied, the words cutting through him like a knife. "Curiosity brought you here. You chose this." The monitors flickered again, and one by one, the scenes returned to their original feeds. Maya, his parents, strangers he didn't recognize, all continuing their lives, oblivious to the fact they were being watched. Alex turned back to the laptop, which now displayed a new message. Every watcher becomes the watched. Every watched becomes the watcher. "No," Alex said, backing away. "No, I'm not doing this. Let me go." The masked figure reappeared, stepping into the circle of light from the shadows. They held out a tablet, its screen glowing faintly. On it was a feed of Alex's parents' house. "Choose," the voice said. "Choose what?" Alex asked, his voice breaking. "Who will replace you?" Alex's mind reeled. Replace him? He looked at the tablet, the feed of his parents frozen on the screen. The camera focused on his mother as she reached for her coffee, her face serene and peaceful. "You can't be serious," Alex whispered. "I won't do it. I won't drag someone else into this." The masked figure tilted their head, waiting silently. "If you don't choose," the voice said, "we will." The monitors around him flickered, and the feeds grew darker, the images warping. The people on the screens, his parents, Mia, strangers, turned to face the cameras, their eyes wide and hollow, their mouths stretched into unnatural smiles. "Stop!" Alex shouted, his voice cracking. "Just stop!" "Choose," the voice repeated. Tears streamed down Alex's face as he stared at the tablet. His mind raced, but there was no way out. Either he made a choice, or the voice would take someone, anyone. Finally, he whispered, "Take me. Just leave them alone." The monitors went dark, the laptop shutting off in an instant. The masked figure stepped forward, placing the tablet on the table before vanishing into the shadows. The voice returned, softer now. "Welcome to eternity." Alex's body slumped in the chair, his eyes glassy and vacant. The monitors around the room came back to life, each displaying a new live feed. One showed Mia sitting at her desk, a faint shadow moving behind her. Another showed his parents, their peaceful conversation continuing uninterrupted. And in the center monitor was Alex, sitting in the metal chair, his expression blank. The camera zoomed in on his face as a single tear rolled down his cheek. Somewhere far away, on a forgotten corner of the deep web, a new link appeared. Curious? Click here to see the truth. The link appeared in a forgotten corner of the deep web, buried beneath layers of encrypted forums and cryptic posts. Its title was enticing. The feed. Do you want to see the truth? Mia didn't know why she clicked. She wasn't a tech enthusiast like Alex, but something about the post drew her in. Maybe it was her worry about Alex, how distant and paranoid he'd become in the weeks before he disappeared. Maybe it was her curiosity about the deep web, a world Alex had so often spoken about. Whatever it was, she clicked. The screen loaded a plain white page. A single video window appeared with text above it. Live feed starting 0030. Mia's discovery. Mia hesitated, her heart racing. The countdown ticked away, and she felt a pang of guilt. Alex had warned her about the deep web, how dangerous it could be. But he wasn't here to stop her now, and she had to know what happened to him. When the timer hit 0, the screen flickered to life. The video was grainy, but she recognized the scene immediately. It was a room filled with monitors, each one displaying a live feed from different locations. In the center of the room sat a figure slumped in a metal chair. Mia's breath caught in her throat. The figure looked familiar, too familiar. "Alex," she whispered. The camera zoomed in, confirming her worst fear. It was him. His face was blank, his eyes hollow, his body unmoving. "No," Mia muttered, leaning closer to the screen. "What is this?" The feed flickered, and new text appeared on the screen. "Welcome, Mia." Her blood ran cold. She slammed the laptop shut, her heart pounding in her chest. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "This isn't real. It's not real." But her phone buzzed on the table. A message from an unknown number appeared. "You shouldn't have looked." For days, Mia tried to shake the experience. She avoided her laptop, ignored the buzzing of her phone, and stayed at her friend's house to feel less alone. But no matter where she went, the messages followed. At first, they were vague warnings. "Curiosity is dangerous. You've seen too much." But soon, they became more personal. "We see you, Mia. It's your turn now." One night, she woke to the sound of her phone vibrating incessantly. The screen displayed a live feed of her own bedroom, the camera slowly panning across the room. Her breath hitched as she noticed movement in the shadows, a figure standing in the corner, their pale mask glinting in the moonlight. Determined to understand what was happening, Mia dove into research. She scoured forums and threads, searching for any mention of the feed. Her search led her to the same cryptic forum Alex had visited, where people described their encounters with the live feeds. One thread caught her attention. "If you've been chosen, there's no escape." The comments were chilling. "They'll take everything from you. It's not just a feed, it's a curse. The only way out is to pass it on." Mia's stomach churned. She clicked on the final reply, hoping for answers, but all it said was, "You can't run. They're always watching." Mia's search led her to the same address Alex had visited. The warehouse loomed in the darkness, its broken windows and crumbling facade a silent warning. She hesitated at the entrance, gripping a flashlight tightly in her hand. Inside, the air was thick and oppressive. The faint glow of monitors lit the room, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Mia's eyes darted to the center of the room, where Alex sat in the metal chair, motionless. "Alex!" she called, rushing forward. "Alex, it's me!" He didn't respond. His eyes didn't move, his expression blank. Tears welled in Mia's eyes as she shook his shoulder. "Wake up, please!" The monitors flickered, and a voice echoed through the warehouse, a distorted, hollow sound that sent chills down her spine. "You shouldn't have come, Mia,"